keep going and doing everything that you can, because the teach abroad process can be long, it can be confusing, there's a lot of paperwork involved. It's all worth it. Yes, that first stage can be very annoying, honestly, but it's so worth it when you're abroad, when you're having these experiences, meeting people, traveling. You're able to teach all different kinds of learners that you wouldn't have been able to teach. So I Googled the different English language schools, and they all said, we don't care that you have a US teaching license. We don't care that you have a master's in education. You need a TOEFL certificate, and we really prefer CELTA.
On this channel, I offer tips on how to be successful with CELTA and TOEFL courses, and I've spoken a lot about what's involved in the course itself. But now it's time to get the perspective of somebody who has done the course and somebody who's gone on to make a real success of their career post-CELTA. Today, I had a great opportunity to speak with Jamie from ESL Teacher 365 about her experience doing the CELTA, what it takes to be successful on the course, and what are the next steps after you've taken CELTA. You're not going to want to miss this one. Without further ado, let's jump into it. Hello, Jamie. How are you doing?
Doing well. Good to be back.
Great to be back. And I've been looking forward to this one for a while, because the last time that we spoke, you got to grill me on a whole range of CELTA related questions. This week, I'm going to get my own back. And I'm going to turn those tables.
I'm scared.
The spotlight's going to be on you, I'm afraid. So I hope you're ready for this one.
Okay, we'll see.
Well, let's get right into it. So we were speaking, the last time we were together, we spoke about what is CELTA, how to get ready for it, what's involved, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I want to get the personal angle. I want to get the other kind of side of things. Why did you do CELTA?
Aha, good question. I had to. So I taught in a few different countries without a TOEFL certificate, but I have a US teaching license for Spanish, interestingly. So I did that, traveled around. I taught English, I taught dance. Then I got to Australia on a work holiday visa. And we were actually staying with an Airbnb host, and he recommended trying to get jobs in the English language schools here. And I was a bit burnt out because I had been teaching kids for 7 years, and that was a lot of energy. I was kind of just looking for something else, but I thought, okay, maybe I'll look into this. So I Googled the different English language schools, and they all said, we don't care that you have a US teaching license. We don't care that you have a master's in education. You need a TOEFL certificate, and we really prefer CELTA. So I ended up finding a school, doing my course there for the part-time course while I was working at a school across the street. So they said, basically, we can hire you as long as you're enrolled in a course. So I did that. And then on the work holiday visa, you actually have a 6-month restriction. So you have to change your employer after 6 months. So I walked across the street again. I went to the school where I had done my CELTA course, and I ended up teaching there until 2020, and the school shut down. So kind of how I stumbled into CELTA.
Kind of the universe guiding you on your way there, I would say.
Yeah, and that street was very, crucial to everything.
Yeah, well crossed. The last time we spoke, we did get into all the nitty gritty of what's involved in CELTA. So we'll not spend really any time on that in this video, but I do want to ask you just one question. So you mentioned that you had teaching experience before, but you got all this information. We don't care that you have your teaching certificate from the US, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, did you find when you did CELTA that there was any transferability in any way at all from what you had done in your previous teaching life to CELTA? Or did you find that in any way it kind of like got in your way or tripped you up in any way? Like what was your experience there when it came from having some experience as a teacher to doing CELTA?
Yeah, because I taught kids for so long and CELTA is really focused more on teaching adults, I actually had problems because they said, you're really approaching your teaching practice as if these were children. You need to kind of change the way that you're teaching. And so it was useful to do the CELTA course because now I feel much more confident teaching adults and I have so much experience. I did a lot of lesson planning, student teaching, all of that, teaching kids. So I'm a better teacher now. I did teach some adult students privately in my previous teaching life, but now after CELTA, I'm much more confident. I think I can get them better results. So it is kind of worth it. But yes, I faced issues with being able to transition my skills. Of course, I knew how to lesson plan, so I kind of had all of that down. I knew the basics of English grammar, but at the same time, teaching kids, we're really only getting to that intermediate level. And I ended up teaching more advanced students later on. So that was a bit of a learning curve as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It comes as a bit of a rude awakening sometimes to people who have been teaching, especially kids before. It's a whole different ball game
It's different. Yeah, I think for kids, it's very much your energy, acting, games, those kinds of things. And with adults, it's a lot of questions. It's making sure they understand. It's confidence. It's different.
absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so all things kind of CELTA itself aside, let's kind of fast forward to post CELTA.
Okay.
What was your like? Okay, so you finished CELTA. You have got through CELTA with your life intact, just about. I'm sure. What were your next
Yeah.
steps after CELTA? Like what did it look like for you once you'd finished the course?
Yeah. So when I finished that course, I still had a few months at that school that I was teaching at. And I was teaching mostly beginner, intermediate levels, a few random like business English classes and some writing classes. They just had these kind of extra special classes that you could do. And then when I searched for my next job, the only position available was for a test prep teacher. I had no idea what the Cambridge exam was beyond some basic tutoring that I had done with high school students in Spain. I had done all the kids' exams. I'd gotten to FCE, first certificate, a little tiny bit, but they were asking me to teach the entire course. So they asked me, "Can you do this?" I said yes. I had no idea what I was doing. I said yes. I learned a whole lot, and I ended up doing both general English and test prep there. So that was a pretty easy transition just because I was staying in the same area of teaching as I did my course. But of course, a lot of people do their TEFL certificate and then they go to another country. So I had kind of done years of that already, just didn't have that TEFL, but I had my US teaching license. So yeah, my story was a little bit different.
Right. And just in terms of finding a job, so, I often think about it this way, that you have to have a kind of like can do or a kind of MacGyver kind of attitude when it comes to teaching. I hear you using the word transition there quite a bit. Like, would you say that that's a kind of important quality for somebody coming off CELTA to have when it comes to their attitude around finding work?
I think there's a few different ways to approach finding a job after your course. And first of all, you need to be very clear on what you actually want. So when I first taught abroad, I knew I wanted to teach in a Spanish-speaking country because I was learning Spanish at the time. I was very interested in it. I had my teaching license in Spanish. So I didn't think that it would be a good idea to teach Spanish in a Spanish-speaking country. So that's why I kind of switched to English. But in that way, I knew what I wanted. I wanted warm weather. I wanted Spanish speaking. So I went to Costa Rica. That was my first location. I eventually then went on to teach in Spain as well for a long time, some other random countries in there too. But it's important to know what you want. And there's a few different things you can consider because some people, it's the money. They really want to go somewhere where they can enjoy and afford everything. And that's fine. If that's what you want, then look at those countries that have a either lower cost of living or they have higher salaries, they have good benefits. But if you want to learn a specific language, of course, you're going to be drawn to those countries. So first, you need to be quite clear on where you actually want to teach, I guess.
It's something that we have in common, actually. I spent a long time living and working in Spain as well. So maybe in another conversation, we can delve into finding work in Spain and what it's like living and working there. But just on that point, was there any assistance from the CELTA like center where you took your course, or was there any kind of like help for you finding work, or were you on your own? Like, what advice would you give somebody in terms of the actual ins and outs of finding work after CELTA?
Right. Yeah. My course offered no assistance. So we finished our course. They said, okay, give us an address anywhere in the world where you want us to send your certificate, and goodbye. So that was all we got. And I have seen that is a big issue with a lot of TOEFL courses is maybe they say they offer assistance, but it's usually just like a list of links, which half of them don't usually work. People don't know where the job sites are that you can apply. If you have an actual license, there's actually international schools. That's like a whole another part of teaching abroad. So I like to recommend going to a few different websites and then also checking out teach abroad programs. There's a lot of government programs where you can teach, usually in public schools. Some of them are in charter or private schools as well, but they're really good for people who are brand new to teaching. There's also, if you're a bit adventurous, there are countries where you can enter on a tourist visa and then just go to schools, apply, do your interviews, meet people from the school, see what it's like. So it really depends on your comfort level. And I think this is why it's really confusing. There's many different paths that you can take, which is why I like to help people kind of set them on the right path. And I know that you do too. So if you're watching this and you're feeling stressed out because you just did your course or you haven't done it yet and you're not sure what to do next, you can contact one of us. We have a ton of resources to get you on that right path.
Absolutely. And that really ties in with what I wanted to talk to you about next. A question that I often get asked when people do come to me for those kind of services, they feel a little bit lost. And I guess what I would ask you, like, what are some of the pitfalls or what mistakes do you think there are to be avoided once you finish CELTA? Like, what could some of those be?
First of all, you want to have a CV or resume, and you want to have that updated. So include your TOEFL certificate, your CELTA, whichever course that you did. And then you want to think about your top 3 to 5 countries and really optimize your CV or resume for those countries, because not every country has kind of the same CV. Sometimes you'll include a photo, for example, and other times that's like not okay. No one puts a photo on their CV or resume. So it's important to know what the standard format is. So get that CV ready, know what your top regions or top countries are, so you can really set out and kind of have those blinders on, because it's easy to just say, oh, I'll teach anywhere. If you do that, it's going to be very overwhelming and you'll probably end up teaching nowhere. So choose 3 to 5 countries, really focus on that, and then always have a plan B, C, possibly plan D, because things fall through. So when I taught in Costa Rica, I was originally supposed to teach in Peru. I had everything all set up. I had a grant from my university to teach there. And then I had a blood clot randomly in my leg, and I needed medication for that, blood thinners, which had to be monitored by tests every single week. So the place in Peru was very remote. I wouldn't have been able to access any of those services. So I quickly had to change, get a new country. And luckily I found my position in Costa Rica on Dave's ESL Cafe, which is like the classic job board.
Absolutely.
So that was my first job, but it was very stressful, obviously, having to switch like that. So I always recommend going in and having a few different countries in mind, a few different pathways, and that way you're not going to be so stressed out.
Yeah, I think that is golden advice. I've actually had a similar experience myself living in South America with a medical emergency that really made me question a lot of things. But I just would throw in there, both you and I have had experience in similar parts of the world. I don't want to put people off. For example, I had this situation that happened to me when I was in Brazil, and it made me think, oh my goodness, I'm a little bit exposed here. But I had a wonderful experience living in that country. It just ties back into your advice, which I think is the most important one. Have not only your plan A, B, C, and probably it's a good idea to go all the way down to D as well there. Just
Yeah.
make sure that you're covered if something like that happens, because you just don't want to get yourself caught out, right?
Yeah, and a lot of the visas change. So maybe you're good to go. You think you have your visa to teach in Spain, and then, oh, now because of a law change, now you have to find a new visa. So that's something too. It might not be a medical emergency, not so dramatic, but it could be something simple as, oh, now we require you to have a degree for this job or something else. So giving yourself multiple options just means that you're going to be more successful than just putting all of your eggs in one basket with, one program or one visa or one job.
Absolutely. And I think, if I can give a little plug to like what you and I do, we not only have we, got the information, but kind of like been there, done that. And I think speaking to somebody who has experience like yourself or myself will kind of like, when you do your Googles or whatever, you might find a website, or you do your chat GPT and you might get some information, but it might be completely bunk as well. I think it's really a good idea to speak to somebody who's been through it as well, who's done it.
And it does take a bit of just like having that motivation and the mindset of just keep going and doing everything that you can, because the teach abroad process can be long. It can be confusing. There's a lot of paperwork involved. You might be traveling to different embassies, getting pieces of paperwork stamped is very common, and it's all worth it. Yes, that first stage can be very annoying, honestly, but it's so worth it when you're abroad, when you're having these experiences, meeting people, traveling. You're able to teach all different kinds of learners that you wouldn't have been able to teach. It's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would really echo that. Having been through the bureaucracy in a number of countries, it's taxing. It's taxing, but the experience of I heard this beautiful thing about learning another language or living in another culture, that every language carries its own wisdom. And I've certainly found that from living in a whole bunch of different countries, that I would try to say something with a what's called L1 transfer, language one transfer, my weird way in Spanish or Portuguese or something, and people would laugh and say, we don't say it like that, and then you learn the way to say it, and then you kind of like learn something about how another people kind of sees the world. I guess I'd just like to get your kind of point of view on that one as well. So you've lived in a whole bunch of different places around the world. What would you say it's taught you as a human being, as Jamie, like rather than just certification? What is living and working and having your life in these different places done for you as a person?
Yeah, a lot. I guess it's very challenging to go off on your own and live in a place where it's not your culture, it's not your language, you don't really understand what's going on, why people do things the way they do, but it teaches you how to have an open mind and shows you how strong you are and how resourceful you are. Like you mentioned with the language, maybe you need some help and you're trying to string together your broken words to get help. But yeah, just in general, the people that you meet, most of them are good people, and it's a really good way to meet other people because you are living in that culture or you're living in that country. So it's not like tourism where you're just kind of getting the highlights. You're really seeing what it's like to live there. And I usually try to live either with locals in a shared apartment, or I've done homestays. My homestay family in Costa Rica, we are still extremely close to this day. My
Wow.
family has met them. My husband still needs to. We need to plan a trip there. But yeah, it's amazing the people that you'll meet. And I met my husband while teaching abroad. I met
Wow.
my best friend while teaching in France. So it's amazing to have friends all over the world and be able to share in different cultural festivals and events. And it's a beautiful way to live.
Absolutely, absolutely. If I could just circle back to like the other part of life as a CELTA graduate, so the actual teaching itself. Correct me if I'm wrong. You have taught both in person and online as well. Do you have any recommendations around those experiences for anybody watching this, wondering what's best for them after CELTA?
Yeah. So after CELTA, you do have options of how you want to teach. And I guess kind of think of if you did your course in person, is that what you preferred? Or for your lifestyle, do you plan on kind of teaching and traveling, or do you prefer to work from home? Right now, I am teaching 100% online. After CELTA, I taught in person for 4 years at a school, but with 2020 and everything that happened, we actually ended up moving out of Brisbane and we live in a smaller beach community now. So it's quite a commute to get back into the city. So I teach online. I also suffer from a few different chronic illnesses, which means that it can be very challenging to teach in person now. So I love the flexibility of teaching online. So think about your lifestyle. Do you really crave that community and environment of the classroom, which is very, very fun? I miss it a lot. Or do you like more the convenience of teaching online? And also, teaching online, I think it's a bit easier to maybe do one-on-one lessons or smaller groups, whereas classrooms, typically you're teaching larger groups. So what do you prefer in terms of class size as well? And yeah, I think online teaching is a little bit different now because in August of 2021, a lot of the very popular Chinese companies ended up shutting down. So it's been kind of a weird situation since then. So if you are serious about teaching online as a CELTA graduate, I actually recommend freelance teaching and kind of getting into that. So it's a bit of a different game than it used to be. It used to be a bit easier. But yeah, just think about what you can see yourself doing. And if you want to travel, if you want to stay at home, those kinds of questions.
So from that, I have it's a little out of left field, but it's very kind of tied in to what you're talking about now. I've been reading and researching and watching a lot of videos and making some videos on my own channel actually about this whole idea of what's called a digital nomad. Now, you're a person who has not traveled to one country, but several countries, and you've managed to flourish and become a successful like entrepreneur with this world of teaching and digital options out there. So what advice would you have to somebody who might be considering this life as a digital nomad?
Yeah, so I think it's a huge buzzword that's going around right now, and with good reason, because more countries each year are adding digital nomad visas. And what these are essentially is if you have some sort of online business or if you're teaching online, you can stay in another country for sometimes that's 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. Some of them are up to 5 years, and you can legally live and work remotely in those countries. So this is a fantastic way if you do like slow travel, you're not really interested in kind of hopping country every 3 months, you'd rather really live somewhere and experience it, is to do one of those digital nomad visas. It gets a little bit tricky because they have minimum income requirements. And it's not standardized at all. Each country kind of has their own requirements. So some of the income requirements aren't very high. So it's a bit more accessible for ESL teachers, for example. But some of them do have quite high income requirements. You also maybe have to have had your business for at least a year. So you need to look at the countries that you're interested in and really see if you're eligible for them. If you're not yet, this is something to work towards, and you can do that by building your own teaching business. So I personally have a YouTube channel, I have a website, I offer coaching and courses, and I've been able to build this business. And now I can kind of use that to teach anywhere or to work remotely anywhere that has these digital nomad visas. So I think that it's a little bit beyond just teaching online. You do want to be a bit of an entrepreneur, or at least have some sort of course that you're selling, or some sort of content creation, or maybe you make teaching materials for Teachers Pay Teachers, something like that, to qualify for these visas. So it's a great option and perfect for anyone who sees himself traveling a lot and living abroad and everything. But it does go beyond the basic, just I want to teach online and travel and live abroad.
Right. I think that's really great advice. And just, picking up on what you're doing yourself, I was super excited to have this conversation because I've followed you online. So anybody watching this, please go ahead and check out Jamie's website and YouTube channel. Amazing content over there. Jamie, where can people find you? Just give the main places people can find you to get more of this kind of information.
Yeah, so if you like videos, I'm just ESL Teacher 365 on YouTube. My website is ESLTeacher365.com. I'm on Instagram. Those are probably some of the best places to find me. And I will tell you a bit about where the name came from. So I had a travel blog and travel YouTube channel called Abroad 365 because I've been living abroad since 2010. But then I kind of switched in and thought I'm just going to go all in on helping teachers and helping students as well. And so that became ESL Teacher 365. So I get a lot of questions of like, where did this 365 come from? That's where it came from.
Amazing. I love it. Well, I'm going to post all of those links in the description below. So please, anybody watching this, check them all out. I can't recommend it enough. Jamie, thank you so much for your time. This has been really eye-opening for me. I've learned a lot. Can we do it again sometime? Would you be up for it?
Absolutely. Yeah, we need to talk about teaching in Spain.
Absolutely. Okay, let's do that for sure. Look, thank you so much, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Thanks a lot, Fergus. See you next time.
Bye. Okay, thank you so much to Jamie for joining me for that conversation. Jamie's insights, I think, will be of great benefit to all of you watching out there. Don't forget to go over to ESL Teacher 365 to check out everything that Jamie has on offer to you. It's really, really great material. I can't recommend it highly enough. If you found this video beneficial, please do hit that share button. Hit subscribe if you want to get more of this content for when you're doing your course or even after you've finished whatever course it is you're doing. There's also a link in the description if you'd like to book a free call with me. I'd love to talk to you about your objectives. Okay, that's it from me. All that's left to say is bye for now, and I'll see you in the next one.